All right, so we're going to dive right in, and I'm super excited for this, Mark, and thanks for joining. And one thing I really appreciate about Mark is that he's very open to sharing like what is really happening in the business, because I feel like a lot of times in our industry, a lot of people have egos and they're like puffing their chest, even though they might be hurting behind the scenes. And I know what it's like. I've been through like the roller coaster over the last 10 years. I've been through it all. And I know we've had conversation. You've been out to a couple of our events. And what I would like to do is I want to give you like 2 minutes, and I just want you to tell the audience high level, what does your operation look like today? So before we dive in, they understand what you look like today.
Yeah, the great question. It's actually just been kind of radically reconfigured because we just had some partnership stuff that just had to get worked out. So right now, I've got one other partner. Um, he is a full-time Air Force captain, and so he works as a nurse at the Army Hospital here in San Antonio. And I'm here full-time, and we hired an acquisitions guy who's also full-time. That's kind of what we have. And so right now we're just really trying to dial in and master the acquisitions process and continue to just get super good at this. And we've just revamped or kind of focused our marketing strategy to focus mostly on first to market data. We just got some data from Dataflick and a dialer, and just kind of using ready mode and a single line dialer to work through that data and really try to deep prospect it and get really motivated leads to push into for my closer to call. And that's pretty much the gist of it right now. And my partner, who is got the job with the military, he's been the guy pretty much focused on Dispo and trying to build that out. That is a little bit of a bottleneck for us right now. And so we're actually going to be hiring a full-time or almost a full-time, maybe a VA, to kind of just continue to build that Dispo line for us so that we really can have more deals that close. One of the things I will say that was really impressive for me when I met you guys is you had such a buyers list built out that you talked about different, knowing your buyers, and, like somebody might buy on a cap rate, somebody might want 70%, somebody might want 75%, or a lump sum rehabber. And it's like, man, we don't have that luxury yet because we haven't earned it yet. And so that's kind of a bottleneck, is because there's been a little bit of a time encumbrance for us to be able to do that. And so that's a huge priority for us now. So that way, if we find a deal that the seller's not willing to budge enough for us to maybe sell it to a flipper, but there could be somebody who might want to burr it, or somebody who might want to, like a hedge fund that would buy it on a cap rate, that would actually buy it and we can still make money on it. So that's been an encumbrance for us as well. But that's kind of what we got going on. So I'm excited about it because, we're kind of really finally locking in after, months, but we're ready to persevere and do what it takes to start
Okay,
to
so
get.
there's a lot of things mentioned, and what I like
Yes.
to do is start all the way to the left, because we can't like start solving problems in the middle if all the way to the left isn't fixed, because it'll become a domino effect. And I know you mentioned like you've had some change up with partners and all that, and it sounds like your current partner is still working full time
Mhm.
somewhere else. Okay.
Mhm.
So what top 3 KPIs are you responsible for, and what top 3 KPIs is he responsible for?
Up until recently, I've been responsible for all of it. Now for me, I'm on my acquisitions guy, dials, processes, connections, offers, like pretty much those KPIs on acquisitions is my thing. Every day we're working through CRM, like, okay, what's the low hanging fruit, who's ready for an offer and all that stuff. And now the marketing, all the marketing KPIs, all the marketing metrics, Daniel will be responsible for. So he's actually actively working through some of the marketing training and results driven, and through some of the Dataflick stuff, so that way he's got a more comprehensive understanding of it.
Okay. When you say he's working through that, how long have you guys been partners?
We've been partners since September. However, he was in Qatar, uh, on the other side of the world for like the first half of this. So he's just kind of got back, and he just had a baby as well. And so now he's kind of full steam in this. So when he's been predominantly Dispo, when he came back, just focusing on that, and I've been handling all the marketing. I've been handling all the other stuff other than Dispo has pretty much all been on me. And doing that,
So hold on real quick. So
okay.
you went to saying he's doing marketing and dispo, and then you're like, well, acquisition's on me, marketing's on me, dispo's been on me. So I'm just curious, like, was he making 50% while he was gone, or like, how does that work?
So we initially had two other partners. So it was initially like a third,
But
and
how
then
does
one
it
of the
work the
guys.
last 3 months?
Yeah, it's been even.
Okay, so it's been even split, even though you are handling, it sounds like, a good majority of things.
A good majority of things, yeah.
Okay. So let's go backtrack all the way to left. When you went in to get in a partnership, like, what were you looking for and why did you feel you needed a partner?
I believe that we can go further together.
Why?
I'm open, just because I think, like, to me, like when I'm looking at you, like you have a husband and you guys partner together, I would imagine, and you maybe could have gone the same without him, but I think with him, I would just maybe
I'll answer
presume
that
that
for
it's
you. Yes, I would have
yeah.
went just as far without him, but go on.
Okay. Yeah. So to me, a big part of my thrust to do this is to really like kind of mentor people a lot. Like so, like faith is a big part of my drive to do this. And one of the things that really got me into doing like wholesaling and flipping is that my ability to reach out and mentor many people, for like we're all Christians, so like that's kind of a big part of it. And so because I own a lot of multifamily real estate, like apart from those guys, I own like
Okay,
almost a thousand
I
units.
think
Yeah.
we're getting off topic though.
Okay.
What made you get a partner? Because like that, what mentoring and all that has nothing to do right now with why you took a 50-50 business partner.
Yeah, that was kind of a little bit part of my thrust with that. But and so for me, if I can focus on one aspect of this and have somebody else focus on something else, I think we could do a better job, a more complete job. That was the way I was thinking. And
Okay.
so yeah,
So what is his why and what is he trying to accomplish?
he wants, to my understanding, he just wants financial freedom. He just wants to make the money to build the business, so that way, he can go and I think live in Italy with his
What
wife
does
once
that
he's done
mean
with
to,
the
like, what does
military.
financial freedom mean to you versus him?
Buying my time back. I like to do more like missionary based work, and with my family and my kids.
Okay. And then what is, like, when you deem financial freedom, what's the number for you and what's the number for him?
I don't know what his number is. I probably should. For me, I would say if I'm able to net passively, I would say, or quasi passively, over $500,000 a year, I would be able to have, I wouldn't have to work anymore, but I could also add value and contribute to things wherever I was, going to do missionary work.
Okay. So when you say net passively 500, that you're saying like not working at all anymore or just
Very
making
minimally.
500 a year? Okay.
Very, very minimally. Yeah. Very minimally working.
Okay. So a lot of times people jump into partnerships because of fear. They think, "Oh, I'm not great at sales or I'm not great at marketing or I'm not great at construction. So then I'm going to go give 50% of my equity to somebody else."
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, if it's a sales role, it's a $3,000 base. You onboard them, you train them, and you lead them. If it's a project manager, it's call it 50 to 80,000 a year, maybe some incentive. If it's a dispo manager, call it $2,000 to $4,000 a month plus commission. And a lot of times we and I think a lot of it is derived, unfortunately, because maybe we were in like a newbie program or something at some point where they encourage working together and all that kind of stuff. But the
Yes.
reality is a bad partnership can be detrimental to a family.
Right.
Okay, detrimental, the worst thing that could ever happen to a family. And I know you mentioned me and Josh working together, but one thing I don't know if a lot of people know this just because we've been in business now for a decade. But I originally started Heels Homes and Josh was working full time in construction. Okay. And there was no partnership in line for me and Josh until we were engaged and getting married. Before that, he was an employee of our company. Okay. And even before that, it was like, we aren't partnering on anything, even in marriage, unless we're 100% aligned on what is the end game, what's the end number, what does life look like on a daily basis. We literally have it framed on a piece of paper, defined. From the time I wake up till the time I go to bed, what does that day look like? And how long are we giving ourselves to get to that day? And if we don't hit that day by this deadline, what happens next? And if we don't agree on all these moving pieces, like what role and responsibility and metric and KPI and all that that we want to hold each other accountable to is irrelevant, because we might not even be aligned on our future in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big believer that a business partnership is honestly could be more detrimental than getting a divorce, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And
Tracking with you.
so a lot of times we, like I said, we get into these partnerships thinking, well, if they do this and I can do this, we can get more done. And that's like one of the worst answers to give, to be honest with you. I get fearful with that because there was no identification of, I know, for example, I know how to raise private money. Okay. Like I'm really good at raising private money. Now, I do not know how to evaluate, operate. I am not an expert at commercial real estate by any means. But if I wanted to get into commercial real estate, then I know going into this, here's my end game. Here's exactly what I want to make. Here's the type of partner I would want to be with. I bring raising money to the table through my network. They would bring operations and deal finding. Very clear, black and white. Now I don't do that, but I'm just saying if I were to jump into that, that would be my like very high level start of this is what I have to offer. And right now, what I'm hearing is you're like, I'm doing acquisition, I'm doing marketing. He's responsible for Dispo. Oh, by the way, I've been kind of doing Dispo, but oh, he's making 50%. And the reality is, it sounds like he's been with you since September. And when we hire a closer into our company, and I think you know this, but when we go to recruit a closer, they have 2 weeks of onboarding. They're on the phones by week 3. And if they don't have 5+ deals in 30 days, they aren't going to be working for us. So we've now had this partner on team with us since September, and we're saying that he still needs time to learn. And my confusion here is it's maybe not his fault. It just doesn't sound like there's very clear expectations between the partnership.
I would say that was one of the things we worked with Kelsey on one of the calls. And so one of the things was like, okay, there's 3 of us and like one guy's not really in. And so now Daniel and I are going to say, okay, like what are our roles? So my roles is I need to be on the phones. I need to be acquisitions. Like that's my thing. He's going to take on the marketing role and the dispo role pretty much. That's going to be his thing. And so that's just, this is new for him. He wasn't really involved in that before. So
yeah.
So that's, that's kind of the plan, clearly defined roles. And this is kind of a relatively new thing. For me, this is where I feel like we're actually going to catalyze a breakthrough now, is because we're getting really, really clear on this. And but I'm agreeing with everything you're saying.
So right now, the number one thing that could happen for you guys is, I'll give you an example. You know the KPI planning sheet, right? And so getting clear on what is the quarterly goal. Then we have to reverse engineer it and define each other's metrics. So I'm just making this up, but let's say you're marketing. And your marketing, then you would reverse engineer your marketing channels and whatever you guys are going to attack. And we're going to say, hey, you have to produce XYZ number of leads at this cost per lead, and acquisitions obviously has to then perform at this many offers, this many contracts, so we can drive a certain cost per contract within a range. His job is to maximize the exit strategy. So to monetize every lead. And my guess is if he's doing dispo and you're doing acquisitions, like he should be handling transaction coordinating, I would assume.
Yeah, he's been doing that too. Yeah.
Okay. So ultimately, we have to get clear with that end game, because the rest of it doesn't matter. What marketing channel we do and all these other things doesn't matter if I'm in a partnership and we're just not aligned from the beginning, because it'll just create like complete chaos. So let's assume that you guys are 100% aligned, which, by the way, I'm going to give you 5 days to be 100% aligned, and I'm going to follow up with you.
3 days. No, please. This is awesome.
3 days.
This is great.
All right,
yeah.
So 3 days, I'm going to follow up with you. Now, at the end of the day, nothing else matters either if we don't go get deals. So it sounds like first to market is what you guys are going after. Is that the only thing you guys are doing right now?
So we have PPL also. We were doing cold callers with Dial Force on the stack niche data, and we have a good amount of leads. But it wasn't really like the best leads we had were first to market all the time. Like we had so much more success with that. And so because marketing budget is small right now, like we talked with Kelsey a little bit, and we felt like, okay, let's just laser focus on this. Let's master this first to market strategy, and then build up our pipeline, get some more money coming in, and then we can re-expand out into kind of like what we just did in that thing with Ty.
So how many
Tier 1
leads
and Tier
from
2.
that right now is it taking to get a deal?
I'd have to go back. We're really just revamping this again. So like before this, I was going and getting the sheets. I was going and getting the data. I was going and we're at the end, we're having somebody else skip trace it for us, but I was the one calling it and pushing it into my CRM for my closer to call. So in that 5 days, give me the homework to give you the number.
Okay. All right. I'll be following up on that. Now,
Yes.
since let's just start there, because if we dive into marketing channels and all that, it's kind of irrelevant if we don't know what the goal is. Yeah. I do want to start. I do want to go back to this, because before this podcast got started, you mentioned like you want to become the leader that deserves the result, essentially.
Correct.
And 100%. What you've learned over time is very similar to me. Like I would call myself a leader, not necessarily like the greatest day-to-day people manager. And the way that I describe this is, for those of you listening, I always tell the story of the show or the documentary, The Founder, on Netflix, which is all about McDonald's. And so originally these two brothers, they're the ones that originally created McDonald's. They had these 2 stores, and they created the perfect, highest quality burger in the fastest time possible, because back then it really wasn't a thing. And they could never get past 2 stores. They would like try to grow and snap back. It's called the rubber band effect. And they were really good day-to-day managers, but they weren't good leaders, which ultimately is what was needed to turn it into what it is today. So Ray Kroc comes along, sees this perfect process, and he turns it into the worldwide enterprise that you guys see today. And at the end of the day, though, in order to be, I would call it self-made and start something from scratch and not buy it already, performing, we have no choice. We first have to do the job ourselves, and then we have to manage someone else doing it, and then we have to lead another manager. And those are all different skill sets. And most of us get into this game as the doer, right? And so we get in and be what I call deal finders. But in order to become the manager, we have to use leverage. So we have to have the systems, the processes, and the people, which you have, right? Like you have access to onboarding and all that.
Yeah.
And so, and I know that you have a coach through us. So I want to ask you, when you brought on this closer, did you follow the onboarding process?
We did.
Okay. And then how long have they been with you?
A few months.
Okay. And how many deals have they gotten?
September 10.
Okay, good. But you guys are having troubles moving the deals?
We did have trouble moving the deal. A part of our process had to be worked out a little bit, because we've discovered that the whole adage, like buyers are liars and sellers are worse. Well, like we've had a little bit of a challenge really actively or accurately identifying a good scope of work based on the correspondence on a process call.
Okay, so what I want you to do, and I'm sure you're already doing this, I want you to take the last 3 process calls he did that you put in contract that did not go through. Okay. Mm-hmm. I want you to send those process calls to my sales managers. I want to do call reviews on them, but I also want you to attach what was their planned repair estimate comparatively to what came in on inspection, because there's a gap in the questions that they're asking then, and we got to figure out what that gap is.
Sure. So he's going through, we have Resimply, and I actually listened to his process call, the whole 30-minute or 25-minute call, and I'm sitting there taking notes. And I've got 3 different repair estimators that are triangulated, and I mean it'll be within like 2 to 3% of like what it would cost based off what we see. When we went to the house, I mean we were $30,000-$40,000 off because the seller omitted things and said things that were not entirely accurate. And I'd love to send the call, but one of the things was in San Antonio, Texas, foundations are a huge, like all of Texas really, foundation problems are pretty prevalent. He literally said he had the foundation fixed, and when we got there, like, dude, they did a really bad job. Like, this is going to need another $20,000 plus in just foundation work. Your mechanicals, electricals, he said they were all good, but they all needed to be done.
So when the seller said that they were good, did they define the year that they were replaced on the call?
I'd have to go back and listen. I don't recall.
Okay. So I would want to know that. I would also want to know when they said that they fixed the foundation, did we dive deeper and say, how did you fix it? Who fixed it? Do you have a lifetime warranty? Oh, do you
Hmm.
have it saved so that when we get there, we can review it?
Gotcha. Okay. I'm tracking with you. I'm picking up what you're putting down here.
Yeah. So my guess is the detail in the questions might be an issue, but I won't know until we listen to the call. So I'd rather have one of our
Okay.
sales coaches review that, and I will give them a heads up on where I think a gap might be. And then when something like that happens, we have a renegotiation script and process. Are we trying to
Yeah.
leverage that right now?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we did. I've for sure. But when we came back, we were at $45,000 of a hit less than what we initially offered them, and they didn't want to do it. We had
Okay, so
also
what I want you
discovered
to
this.
do is also send the renegotiation call to the sales coach of the deals
Okay.
because I
Is
want to
that going to
I
be?
want to audit them.
Would that be the sales pod coach, or would that be somebody else?
Yeah, who's your pod coach? Is it Amber or
Yeah, yeah, Amber. Yeah, we've been very involved with her too. We've done a bunch of one-on-one meetings. She's been super
okay?
helpful.
All right, let me talk to Coach Aaron and I'm gonna tell him my thoughts on this, and then I want to see if what I think's the gap is actually accurate, but I won't know until I listen to the calls.
Amen.
Um, so we need to do that because that alone could have saved, it sounds like 1 to 3 deals or something recently.
Probably 5 deals.
Okay. So that's a lot of money. So let's
A lot of money.
take that step after this podcast. I'm going to go talk to Coach Aaron right away. I'll get them on it, but you got to organize the calls so that it's easy for them to knock out, and I'll talk to them through what I think the pain point is.
Okay.
In bigger picture, I've known you for a while now, right? You've been out to our workshops, you coach with us. My biggest thing is with you is getting really clear, because I noticed you mentioned like Christianity and missions, and I can appreciate that because I'm a Christian. But one thing I learned, and maybe I don't know if this will hit home or not, but years and years ago, it was my first year where I was like making real money, right? Not just money to survive, but money where, I actually had extra money laying around. Okay. And I went to church and I was like, you get like, I'm tithing, but then they had legacy. And I'm like, I don't really understand legacy. Never really had enough money to even worry about it that time of year. So I asked my pastor if I could go to lunch with him. He sends me to lunch with a legacy pastor, and he made it very clear to me. And one thing that I'd always felt guilty about over the course of the years was I felt like I never really had time to give. I was always feeling guilty because, like, at church, I didn't have time to volunteer or whatever. It was like, I was grinding it out just trying to survive.
Mhm.
And then I started making money, and I was like, okay, I haven't made time for church, but now I have money. What do I do? And he handed me this book at lunch, and I forget the name of it. I'll ping you back on it. And it was all about this pastor who in the South, he's the legacy pastor for the biggest church in the South. He originally, when the internet became a thing, sold what used to be like the first way that you could auction cars online or something.
Mhm.
Sold it for like 100 million. So way back then that was like crazy, right? Still is crazy,
Right.
but back then it was crazy. And he made it very clear that God gives us all different skill sets. And one of the skill sets he gave me was the ability to make money. Like, I know business, I know how to turn 1 into 3, 3 into 9. Okay? Like, I know how to multiply money. And my job on earth now is, I firmly believe, is to grow that skill set, make more money, and give it to those in need. Right now, I do not have the time, but I might have the time some other part of my life, okay, to be like going on mission trips and all that. Now, I
Mhm.
fund them, right? Like, I give the money to fund other people that don't have my skill set. And that was the first thing that came out. And so I really want you to reflect on that, because you might not have the same viewpoint on yourself as I do on me, but you should get really clear on what does God have intended for me today in this part of my journey. Because at the end of the day, if we can't put the mask on ourselves first and our family and you, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter.
Mhm.
But when you're taken care of and you've got your family living a healthy life and yourself, then the amount that you can give back, whether in time or money, probably exponentially grows. And so I'm not hearing clarity right now on what this end game is, and even scarier, what the end game is that matches what your business partner wants.
Yeah.
And once we
Yeah.
get clear on that, I want you to do nothing else but to get to that first step. Because so I think you came to an event. Were you at an event where we did the exercise where you write down the perfect day or whatever, or what you want in your lifestyle?
Yeah, I've actually worked with like Brandon Turner and Dean Grazioso, like which is really, really helpful to get clarity on like what my end goals are, my deathbed goals are, and to reverse engineer them. I actually need to do them for this year with my wife because I've always done it by myself, and it's like, well, I've got a family now. I've got 3 kids that my wife grew and pushed out. God bless her hearts, because I'm not a little man, and so be that as it may, for me, I feel like my vision's clear. Like I want to have an orphanage. I want my kids to follow Christ, and I want to have my time bought back. Those are my 3 end goals. I don't know what Daniel's are. I don't know, and I've actually encouraged my whole team to do the same thing. Get really, really clear and granular on all your goals with your families, and then report back to me so we can align our personal goals with a business goal. I haven't had that feedback yet, and I hope that this gets recorded so everybody sees it, because this is a big deal for me.
Yeah. So
And
what I want you to also reflect on, and I respect that you want to know that about them. Okay.
mhm.
But at the end of the day, and you have a business partner. Let's assume you don't have the partner right now. Okay. This is your vision. This
Yeah.
is your mission, and this is your baby. Okay. So I always give the example of like when I go to start Heals Homes or Results Driven, it is not the team's job to define my core values. It is
Mhm.
my job to define the core values of this company and then recruit people that align with the core values in which I want to operate within.
Mhm.
Okay. And because when you try to fulfill other people's needs, yours will not be met. I'm assuming you're starting this for your own needs. Now, I appreciate the fact that you care enough that you want to involve them with it. But at the end of the day, you need to do this separately first, because you should not have their thoughts, needs, wants, and opinions don't, not that they don't matter right now, but they should not influence what your core needs are.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's get really clear, because right now, the reason why you've had a lot of back and forth for the last couple of years is because you don't have clarity on what you're going after and why. And what I tend to find out about most people, unless you're like crazy, right? Because there's like this 0.001% that are batshit crazy in life, and they go after millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. And people don't understand what goes into that, like mentally. Okay. The type of life that most people actually want might not be as hard as you put it out to be.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we put too much weight to the financial part of fulfilling that life. So, for example, in your, I want my kids to follow Christ, I want to have an orphanage, none of that said that you need to be a millionaire.
Right.
Okay. So let's get really real with, how do I fulfill that? Because it might not be as hard as you're making it out to be. Does that make sense?
It totally does.
And I get it. We all want to provide. You're a man, so I get it. There's a lot of pressure on your shoulders as a husband, as a father, to provide for your kids, to provide for your family. And I'm sure like you go home with a lot of anxiety. Every man does, in my opinion. And hopefully you have that support at home, because I know that it's hard. It'll get less hard the more clear we get. And we have to get clear with your wife that she aligns and agrees with your why, and that she's going to support you getting there before we even align with your partner. Okay.
Yes.
I think once we get really clear on that, because at this last workshop, a couple people, when they really took a step back, right? I had one guy say, "Oh, my cost per life dream lifestyle is 4 million a month." I'm like, "Okay, really? Is that going to fulfill you?" Because I know a lot of billionaires and rich people, and the money isn't what actually fulfills them.
Mhm.
Now, don't get me wrong, money solves a lot of problems. Money helps us get a lot of things that we couldn't otherwise get to provide some level of happiness. But there's still this piece of people chasing financial freedom. They say this word, financial freedom. I
Mhm.
don't use that word very often. I use the words option freedom. I want the option to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. If that means
Right.
going on a mission trip, if that means going to church, whatever it is to you. Now, how do I go make sure that whatever I do day to day supports that? And a lot of people think, oh, I got to love what I do. Look, I think it's all bullshit. I don't have to love what I do day to day as long as it's providing this why over here, because then I'll genuinely feel fulfilled with inside of me. But when this over here produces money, but isn't fulfilling this over here, the battle internally is not good. So I want to get really clear on that. And then let's get clear on the number that it takes to get there. Now, we're not going to hit it overnight, but that's why I've always said, hey, let's map that out. And then let's pull 3 to 4 things out of it and say, okay, over the next 6 to 12 months, I'm going to make sure that when 6 months is up, the financial needle movement has gotten me closer to accomplishing those 3 things. And then we move on to the next.
Yes.
Does that work?
I'm tracking
All right.
with you.
So next action items, I want you to send the last 3 process calls, renegotiation calls, everything you got for 3 deals if the contract fell out. To Kelsey, I'll talk to Aaron about who you're sending it to because it'll take extra time on my team side. So I'll have to go find that out. I want you first, you only, to write it on a piece of paper of what truly do I think is going to fulfill me. For pretend money grows on trees. Like, don't worry about the money for now. Then we're going to have a meeting with your wife. And I would encourage you to have your wife do the same exercise. And then we compare them. Then we're going to realign on how you're going to approach your partner on, hey, here's my deal breakers. This is what's important to me. This is what I'm going after. Are you aligned with me? And are you all in or not?
Amen. I've got this right here that I've done for 3 years in a row. This is called the Better Life Wheel. I was a part of Brandon Turner's little squad for a while. But I really, really appreciate results driven. Probably this has been the most, and this is not a sales pitch. Like, this has been honestly the most valuable, I would say, out of all of the programs I've done, just because it works on these things. It's not just about learning how to do deals and networking with people. But this was revolutionary for me. I realized I went to Ryan Pineda's WealthCon a few years ago, and I saw people that had the same amount of time that I do, and they were able to achieve more. And I realized right away, like, damn, I'm pretty lazy, and 2, I'm very disorganized, and that was for me to eat and deal with. And so, and nobody in my life would have said that about me, but for me, I saw the vision of the mark I could become, and I wasn't there yet, and those were big gaps that needed to be closed that only I could close. And so getting this Better Life Wheel done, okay, what do I really want? Like, how much money do I really need? How am I going to get there? Where am I at with my wife? Where am I at with my kids? And with an honest assessment. And this is very, very, has a lot of affinity with this. And I also have the Dean Graziosi's, deathbed goals and your 7 levels of why. And so I'm going to do this with my wife, and I don't know how you want to follow up with this, but this is this is kind of the same language we're talking about here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what I want you to reframe things when you talk to yourself, because you just said, I'm disorganized, I'm this. You need to say, I'm working on becoming more organized. Don't label yourself that way.
For sure. No, this was a couple of years ago. This was my reality check. It's like, damn, I am not as awesome as I thought. You are
awesome. You're just working on getting better. Okay.
Hallelujah. Yes, that's my.
We got to change our words because they're important to how we train our subconscious mind. Okay, we all get into these grooves, and it's really important that we stay in rooms with people that are going to challenge that out of us. I've gone through it. I go through it every couple of years where I'm like, I must suck at this. I'm bad at this. I'm bad at that, and then I have to hit reality with a mentor that's like, you're sabotaging your own self at this point. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm a big believer in putting yourself with the right people. But we have
for sure.
This one action item. We have to go close the gap because you're telling me that we likely have a process issue with questions and potentially an underwriting gap coupled together. And if we can fix this gap, then it equals money that allows us to invest back into the company. So let's not try to solve the world's problems for now. Let's just solve this one issue and figure out what's happening while you also spend time getting clear on what's going on behind the scenes. And then we'll just move on to the next tactical thing that's in the way. But this one's in the way immediately today.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. So I'm going to go chat with Coach Aaron before my 1:00. And I am going to set a follow-up with you probably a week out with the team. And I'm going to find out how much progress you made.
Amen. And I'm going to get to work on all this today. And I really want to, I know you're busy, so I really appreciate the willingness to do that and follow up. It means a lot.
Yep. Well, let's crush it. For those of you listening, I'll try to give an update on what we find out and what we diagnose. Hopefully we solve some problems here that move the needle. So until next time, I'll see you on the next one.
Amen.